home games. My name is Scott Radley. I'm with the Hamilton Spectator and 900 CHML Radio. Below Steve Milton, the Hall of Fame sports columnist from the Hamilton Spectator. Beside him, Rick Zamperin, the soon-to-be Hall of Fame broadcaster from 900 CHML Radio. Above him, Bubba O'Neill, a guy who can buy a ticket to the Hall of Fame somewhere. I'm kidding. He's going to get in too with CHCH TV Sports. Rick, let's go to you on this one because this is a radio question. The Toronto Blue Jays announced last week that they were not going to have a designated radio crew. This was Rogers and the Blue Jays. They were not going to have a designated radio crew this year. They're going to simulcast their games from television onto radio. Kind of ends what is a huge tradition and connection in baseball for generations and generations. Big fuss about this. But are we making more of this than it is? Is this really a big deal, or are we just all being a little traditional and it's not a big problem?
It is a big deal to, a large segment of baseball fans because, radio being theater of the mind, baseball is the best sport on radio because you get that sense of where you are at the ballpark, how the play is being laid out. It is such a station-to-station game. The storytelling that goes around with it, it is just the perfect sport to be broadcast on radio. In saying that, I think Dan Shulman and Buck Martinez are going to do a decent job of kind of painting that picture for the radio listeners, but it's not going to be the same because those radio announcers are intensely knowing what is going on in the field and how to describe that in a radio sense. When you're in a TV broadcast booth, you have, the scoreboard painting that picture. You can see the alignment of, the infielders. Dan and Buck are going to have to do a lot more of that descriptive kind of breakdown of what's happening on the field than they're used to doing. So I think from a radio listenership standpoint, fans are going to miss a lot of the action.
And I think that's one of the things, Rick, you say, and Steve, I'll go to you right after this, but the challenge here is I think Dan Shulman, if there's anybody in all of broadcasting who can pull it off, it's Dan Shulman. He's fantastic. But because of what you described, if you will do a radio broadcast on television, which may work then for the radio listeners, the TV people are going to be saying, why are you telling me what I can obviously see? And if you don't tell them, Steve, what they can obviously see, then the people on radio have no idea. It's two different animals.
I agree. And I'm not going to just repeat the arguments you both gave because I agree 100%. With that type of thing. And the theater of the mind thing has always been a really, really big thing. What we might see here, and Dan Shulman is the right guy to do this, is an invention of a new kind of a hybrid of some kind.
How?
I don't know. I don't know. And I bet you they're working on this right now because you're right. You could talk down to the TV audience and you could not give enough to the radio audience. And one of the great things about baseball is, and Rick hit this very well on its stationary nature, is that that even with a shift, even with all the crazy shifts, the right fielder never fields a grounder to third. So in your mind, you can already see who's where. And then it takes a different type of storytelling to set all of that up. And but you don't have to describe it in frenetic detail like you do in hockey if you're on the radio, because in your mind, you can't really see who's where because it's so fluid, even basketball. So that's the part that I think they're going to have to invent something new, and I don't think it'll be very good for quite a long time. Everybody's going to feel a little bit ripped off in one form or another until they can sort of settle on some kind of happy medium. And like everything else, we'll get used to it, which I don't like that. That's not really an asset to get used to something.
Well, and you're right there, Steve. We will get used to it. I think we're already used to it based on the fact that Buck and Dan have already called the game for a season watching TV screens. I'm also led to believe that they won't be just watching one screen, one shot like we do here, as we consume it on television. They will have the access to, say, 8 cameras and that are, positioned different places, and they'll be able to look at different things. But then again, there is that difference between the radio call, the smell of the hot dog, the smell of the beer, the crack of the bat, just a different feel and a different sound. I'm going to be honest with you. I see this as maybe a one-year thing. I cannot believe Sportsnet, who are operating in the 4th largest market in Major League Baseball, they own the team. They're one of the few, organizations, franchises where the television and radio arm and the ownership are all in one sort of ownership situation. I think in some ways it's kind of embarrassing that that's what's happening, but we're also operating in a pandemic world. I think there might have been some issues too in choosing a broadcast crew to sort of follow two legendary voices. I know you had Wilner and you had I can't remember the name of the play-by-play guy that was from the Bisons. They had worked together. Ben Wagner. They worked together last year. So maybe they just haven't come to terms on who they actually want for this. And really, with this year being so dynamic, with the team maybe playing in Dunedin, maybe playing in Buffalo, maybe at the end of the season getting to Toronto, it's a special year, special circumstance.
I look at the other way, and Rick, I'd love your answer on this one. I look at the other way. It may be a one-year thing, or much more likely, in my mind, many of the other major league franchises are going to be checking into what's happening with the Blue Jays and wondering, can we do this? Can we save a few bucks? Can we not have to travel with the team? Maybe we can find a way to emulate this. I see way less likelihood of the Jays coming back than of more teams trying this, Rick.
Yeah, without a doubt. And let's not kid ourselves. The Blue Jays are now the only team without a terrestrial radio contract. And you look at the end of the day, it comes down to money. The ad dollars are not there in media right now. So I think Rogers and the Jays are thinking, listen, we already have Dan and Buck calling the game on TV screens. Do we really need two radio guys to do basically the same thing? They're not going to be traveling with the team. The team's going to be, as we know, kind of hybrid between Tampa and Buffalo and maybe Toronto if the border situation, changes itself. But at the end of the day, yes, I think all the other teams in Major League Baseball are looking at this situation and say, should we be doing the same thing? There's going to be blowback in every one of those communities because, baseball fans love listening to baseball on the radio.
It may also be a sign here too that, Rogers doesn't want to give up its radio licenses, but it's pretty obvious what's happening with radio and Rogers. However, you don't ever give a license up, right? So you want to keep something on there. And eventually, of course, like everything else, it's going to end up, it's not quite the same as the Ticats going to, if they do go this way, to online where they can control that type of thing, because they already do control their radio rights and all of those kinds of things. They own the station. So there's an indicator of that too. And I think, Bob, you might be right. There might be something going on inside corporate. What are they going to do? But it may be just a general shift away from something, but you don't give up a radio license ever, if you can.
You could pay
hang on to it.
You could pay two, Bubba, really good radio guys, maybe not the guys you had, but whatever. You could pay two really good radio guys a salary for a year for what the Blue Jays and what Rogers are going to pay George Springer for one game. Like, it's not like we're talking about such an enormous amount of money that it's going to bust the Rogers empire. This is in their ledger, this is a minuscule amount of money, and the blowback seems to be not worth it for them.
But unfortunately, it's that level that corporations don't care about. They're going to pay the big money for the players, but are they going to pay the big money for the broadcast? Are they going to look to nitpick and find ways to save money in terms of the broadcast? Well, I think that's obviously what's happening, at least for this season. Again, let's see what happens. Let's see how this plays out. I'm also interested in how the whole package on radio will be displayed for the consumers on radio. Will there still be a Jays talk, right? Which is something that Mike Wilner kind of made famous, right? To get an opportunity for the fans to still vent. You guys, we have that right here in Hamilton, right? Rick, you do this with the Tiger Cats, an area and an ability for the fans to speak their mind when the team is doing well and when the team is not doing so well. So let's see if the Rogers and the Fan 590 Sportsnet are going to be able to still put together a package for radio fans that's still somewhat separate from what you're going to see on TV.
Rick, I want you to fit. Steve, go ahead. Then I want to ask Rick something and we'll wrap.
I was just going to say what we're going to see. If the Jays are good and they get down to those crunch games, let's say the final month, there'll be a kind of a radio and TV will look and sound the same, because now it's really, really, really important. If you think of the World Series and how much concentration there is, and it almost sounds like a radio broadcast. Mm-hmm. That's when you'll see those things merge. But and that'll be the last memory people have going into the off season.
Rick, I want to ask you this question. You do host the fifth quarter on 900 CHML after Ticat games, when there are Ticat games, and so what the fans can be like. And if things aren't going well, the fans are blunt. they're also intoxicated, but they're blunt. And so if you are the owner of the broadcast network that also owns the team, and you asked about, Bubba was saying about Jay's talk, as Rogers, do you want that on your air anymore? Or you're trying to sanitize now the message? Do you want angry fans ripping the team? Or is this a way to get rid of that and again, clear up all the rough edges and make it all look nice and pretty?
I think any smart franchise would want that fan engagement, whether it's good or bad. In times of victory, they'll want to hear those fans. In times when the franchise isn't doing so well, they're going to have to grit their teeth and take that flack. It's an important part of being a fan. You want to vent, you want to celebrate part of the team. Post-game shows to that effect, like the fifth quarter, like Jay's talk, enable fans to get more connected with their favorite franchise.
And by the way, how was fifth quarter that time the Ticats lost 60-1 to Calgary?
Epic.
Yeah, they are interesting shows. Look, we'd love to know from you. Are you concerned, disappointed, fine? You can be fine. That's okay. Your opinion is fine. Dan Schulman and Buck Martinez, you may say that's totally okay. I got no issue with that. We'd love to hear your comments if you think this is a good idea, bad idea, or neutral idea. Subscribe down below, comment down below. And by the way, after today, I changed my mind. Bubba O'Neill has now worked his way into Hall of Fame contention. He will absolutely be a Hall of Famer. He's just proven himself. We'll talk to you soon.